Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I do have 4 o'clock. I appreciate everyone coming today and want to welcome everyone. The first thing I'd like to do is establish everybody that's at the table here today, and also make sure that this will be the same group that will be speaking at any future meetings.
We have one alternate.
Okay.
In case somebody can't
and
come.
Who is that alternate?
Ryan Campbell.
And his capacity?
He's region president-elect. He's having a new baby, that's why he's on.
If we could just go around and one, not only for record purposes, but also for public here.
I'm Elissa Gard, the region president.
My name is Lori Fordyce. I'm the CTA and Region Treasurer.
I'm Melissa Mollis, and I'm the CTA President.
I'm Melissa Schubert. I'm the CTA President-elect.
And I am Debbie Short. I'm the high school representative.
Dr. Newhart's going to have to speak up. You're good. These people need to speak up. I can't hear everything.
It's gone.
Everybody but Deb.
Again, one more time if we could. I know names, but,
Region president.
okay. Lori?
Region and CTA Treasurer.
CTA President.
CTA President-elect.
High school representative.
Amy Todd, Human Resources Director.
Robert Newhart, Superintendent.
Debbie Consolver, Board Secretary.
Debbie is here in the capacity of taking notes and having any minutes or any agreements reported back to the board. Wes Metz could not be here today, but will be also at the table, particularly from a finance capacity. Just in case, we also want to reserve the right to obviously bring Jim Venturio in case we need to have those questions answered, and also Joe Hadley if there are any legal questions that need to be answered. Okay. Now, am I correct to say that everyone here at this table is MSTA representatives?
Yes, correct.
Okay, that is correct. Okay, parameters for the meeting. We're going to, I'm not going to say we would like to set a time for 2 hours today. If we go past 2 hours, either we haven't gotten anything accomplished, or we're going to get tired. Okay. Debbie's taking the notes and minutes to report to the board on the 12th. And just for everybody's reassurance or reminder, this is a meeting in public. It's not a public meeting. There will not be public participation, okay? Only the representatives here at the table that have been established here just prior to this will be allowed to speak. Having said that, is there one lead person for representatives here?
That would be me.
Breaks if needed, okay? You know, if we got to step back and restroom or whatever, I would suggest that we need to take a break, or if we need to step back and just rethink anything, okay? Or confer with each other if we need to in your own groups. Amy, got anything to add there?
Lead person for us.
That's probably going to be me.
I just wanted to get that out there, but it's not fair enough.
And then the next meeting that we do have already scheduled is for October 14th at 4 o'clock. And Debbie, is that back over at
In the boardroom.
in the boardroom? It was not available today, is why we had to move it here to TMC. The final Board of Education decision, we'd like to be able to take some type of conclusion here to the board on October 26th. Okay, that would be our ideal goal. Any questions there on parameters? Anybody have anything else? Any other things you'd like to add, or?
I have a concern about the October 26th date. I don't believe you can discuss insurance exclusive from salary. So we'll be able to discuss salary prior to October 26th as well.
I can make note of that, Lori. You are talking about a January 1 renewal, where salary has been determined here for this year, fiscal year. I'll make note of it, okay? If there's, as far as parameters from a rule side, I think that gets more into a little bit areas of negotiation. Can you hold on that for just a little bit more? Okay? Any other parameters? I do want to make sure that everybody understands that this is a open meeting. It could go closed if we deem necessary.
What's that procedure?
We would just adjourn this meeting and reestablish a closed meeting date, okay? I don't think that should be the case. That's just me personally. I do not think we're all professionals here and it should not get personal in nature, okay? So if that would happen, I would probably stop the meeting minimally and take a break, okay? Any other parameters? Okay. Okay, areas of negotiation outlined. Mainly the reason is for insurance health benefits. And Lori, your concern is also the discussion of compensation. Amy, do you got any?
My only comment would be to that is, as we're doing this compensation study, we will be reporting that information to the board on October 26th. That will be the first time that they hear the initial information from this. So there would be a concern in the timing of that compensation study, because I think we want that in hand before we make determinations on how we proceed going forward.
The other thing that's playing into this deadline is open enrollment. And trying to get that done, particularly in November, where it can wrap up in December.
How many days do we have to allow for open enrollment? Is it 30, 15, 30? Is there a minimum or a maximum?
Typically, we keep it open, I believe they've kept it open here about 2 weeks, up to 30 days. So you just want to give enough time to make sure people
Right.
have time. And it also depends on what plans will look like going forward to the communication plan that we roll out. If you're adding plans or things like that, then we need to have meetings and a lot of communication behind those. So that may extend that open enrollment period a little bit longer to make sure we can communicate properly with everyone.
Keep it at insurance, health benefits, and wait till the compensation study. Is that a fair assessment?
Our members are very greatly concerned about the increase in premiums and deductibles for some of these without knowing if they're going to get an increase in salary.
I've heard lots of times we've signed contracts for certain amounts,
and then we're going to be changing them mid-year. Does that make our contracts not valid? Because they will be making less money. It affects I would have to retirement. look over the contracts, if the contracts specifically state anything about benefits themselves. But if it does not, then their compensation doesn't change. Yes, they might be paying more out of pocket for insurance costs or things like that. But it doesn't change what their contract rate is because that is their base salary or any extra duty. So it should not, but I would reserve the right to look at the contracts and make sure that it doesn't specifically state that.
Even if board contribution, or district contribution changes and lessens?
I would want to review it. I don't want to say one way or another.
Again, the question is if we want to add, place compensation as part of this negotiation process. Really, the decision at hand is insurance health benefits. That decision has to be made. I think we all know and understand that.
Is the option still there that we can keep our current plan and have the 6-month plan or the 18-month plan so that we could have longer time to educate, talk about what HSAs are? There are so many people that do not even understand what the 3 tiers are.
Well, let's hold up here.
I'm sorry, I'm going ahead, I'm sorry.
I know. I don't disagree that compensation plays into this on a seesaw basis, if that's a fair assessment. I do want to just be on record that we have to get a decision made, though, on health insurance. Now, either we can come to that arrangement to take to the board, or ultimately the board could make that decision. They do have that right to do that, okay? I'm willing to make it a point of discussion, but understanding that not necessarily an agreement, unless knowingly that we got to get an insurance agreement, okay? I'm not going to go out and on a limb here and say we're going to come to an agreement on compensation. Is that agreeable here? In other words, I'm willing to open up that discussion understandingly where you're at with that. Okay? Are there any other areas of negotiation outlined here?
Salary and compensation.
Insurance and salary are the only 2 that I need right now.
So really, insurance becomes a decision, and the compensation, we're open for discussion. Okay. Good enough? Okay. Well, that's just, you've already asked some questions already. I guess some individual discussion I've had, wanted to get into negotiation here now and meeting confirming. Are you as representatives willing to go away from option 1?
I don't think that, I don't really know if we can. I mean, we gave a survey, 93% of the staff, not just MSTA, not just NEA, say option 1. So as representatives, I don't really know if we can, because we represent the staff, so.
Along those same lines, this packet that was put out is hard for some people to read and understand. It's very complicated. You know, if you don't look through it 3 or 4 times, the numbers kind of can run together. And I would like to formally ask the administration if there is any way that there could be informational meetings with Q&A with CBIZ or somebody that can answer some of these questions that our employees have. Because you can see from the survey we put out, there are 148 comments, and a lot of them are questions because they're not understanding this packet. For example, option 5 would reduce their contribution to PSRS, but it doesn't blatantly state that in here. And so they're not fully understanding the implications of some of these. Is there a way that,
Well, any option that would pay less to that health benefit, currently we're paying $638
yes,
per employee. Anything that would be more would pay more to PSRS.
Correct.
Theoretically speaking, anything less would be less to PSRS, but also could be a little bit more take-home per month, too, per employee.
but what I'm
'Cause that
asking is
percentage
there
would
a
be
way
applied.
that administration could have CBIZ do some information meetings or Q&As with employees to help educate them so that they know what they're getting?
Are you talking about communicating all of these options to them?
In a way that
Because
they,
the packet you're referring to was something we presented to the committee.
uh-huh,
And you're right, it is a complicated, and that's why we had CBIZ there so they could explain to the committee members. And I get that it's a complicated and complex discussion. So are you asking for us to have meetings to talk about all of these options with all employees?
where a CBIZ professional or you can answer the questions. What does this mean for me? Because that's what we're hearing a lot is, I don't know what this means for me. There's a lot of confusion about, if I'm a husband and wife that both work for the district, what does that mean for me? And those types of questions that frankly I'm unable to answer, but need to be answered before that they can get on board with one of these.
That's why really we need longer time to educate. We need more time before we make this decision. This is really rushed. This study was able to be brought faster than the salary study, CBIZ was able to get back with us faster with this, and we're not ready to, we need to educate before we can really make a decision.
You do realize that option 1, in order for it to continue to be grandfathered in, would require the district to pick up 95% of that cost.
What is that dollar amount?
That is what's outlined in option 1. The option 1 is the grandfathered plan where the district is picking up the cost.
The per employee premium per month is what, $729? And the district would be required to pick up 95% of that, or $692, basically.
Could we use the money from the rebate, the $7,021,500?
700.
Yeah, $721,000 to kind of take some of that burden away?
For this current school year, that those dollars amount have been, will be line item, okay, for any rebates that we receive. From a prior year standpoint, those dollars were not line item earmarked, okay? So basically, they'd be like living in reserve. But I just want to make sure when you talk about option 1, that you do understand that's a larger cost to the district when we're already showing an amended budget of a 2.5% reduction in reserve balance. Okay?
So I want to make sure I understand. Are you saying the $721,000 rebate has already been earmarked for something else?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Okay,
It'd be reserve balance figures.
so it could go toward this if the board approved
If the
it.
board chose to, or if we agreed to. The question you're asking, and again, I think the ramifications behind it, when we're trying to save jobs, make a balanced budget, that does not help by increasing the cost. And then when you talk about, on the flip side, compensation, that doesn't help necessarily that cause either.
But when you
I
talk
think-
about employee retention, if you cut benefits, and, I mean, most of us are pretty leery that we're gonna get any kind of a salary raise. I mean, that doesn't help that either.
I will guarantee you on a recommendation on salary raise that I will recommend steps. Steps and movement.
Steps will not cover the
Offset
deductible,
of
you know, the.
Well, I'm just,
Yeah, I know,
I'm just
but
going
thank
on
you,
record of
but
that.
we-
Because after going through everything we've been through, to freeze everybody again would not be recommended.
And I agree,
appreciate
we
that.
don't wanna be frozen either, but a step is not going to cover the increase in some of these options out-of-pocket expense. So it would be a wash.
And I will also say, we asked in our survey, and 222 people took the survey, and how likely are they to look in other districts? As of right now, 45% people said that if benefits changed and they had to pay more, that they would be looking in other districts for employment. And 29% were likely, so.
So basically what you're telling me, you're not willing to budge off option one.
According to our membership, we can.
Yeah.
We can't ask them to take home less every month, starting January 1. They feel like you need to save, so it's gonna cost them more money, is what they're feeling.
And they feel like they're paying for problems and things that have happened that we didn't create.
Would they be willing to incur option two? So the district would-
37% responded that option 2 would be their second choice. And that's on this question 2.
But that's-
And the biggest difference between those two is the fact that the district's not responsible for 95% of the premium cost.
But the deductibles skyrocket on option 2.
Where is representatives at on a 6-month term?
That's another thing that we need to educate, because when we explain that, they don't realize that they would have to pay 2 deductibles in 1 year. And so we brought that up at our welfare meeting, and people were it was about half and half. They don't really know what to think about that, so that would be something we could take back to our members and ask. But we didn't ask that yet.
Option 2 would be very hard for people who have their family on their insurance. For several of them, they would not be able to have their family on their insurance.
The road down on this insurance has got to change. How do we get that education to staff?
How do you get the education to staff?
I think, first of all, we can't rush it this fast. We can't have it be for next year. I mean, that's really pushing it. And then we would need CBIZ and other people to go out and educate. I mean, the HSA plan, maybe if we educated and explained it and gave time and the salary study came back and we were able to compensate, maybe that would work. But right now, we cannot change. With the current morale and everything else.
Do they agree to the fact that, from a district standpoint, that it's better to be on a fiscal year basis, and then you don't have this mid-year change?
Yes.
My question on that, though, if we go to a 6-month contract, does that change it to not being grandfathered?
The 6-month contract doesn't change it. It's
Okay.
the amount, it's between the premium amount that the employer pays and plan design.
Because it sounded like in some of the meetings, if that changed, it would be ungrandfathered.
Not just a 6-month.
Okay.
Would there be concessions here at this time to realize that in 6 months, that between now and then, education and agreement that an HSA offering and base plan would necessarily have to be there?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
This insurance plan and design, the district cannot continue to afford. Something's got to give. And if it's on one end, insurance, or on the other end, compensation, or on the third end, I guess, is people's jobs. Okay, and trying to balance all this and what the district needs and educating everyone. So far on any jobs that we have not brought back have been strictly due to attrition. And either a new revenue source has to come into play, or you have to ultimately try to get to a balanced budget. Now, there's a lot of variables in this, I understand that. But from an insurance competitive structure plan design, what we are offering as compared to other school districts, particularly in the North Kansas City area, is a higher premium plan design without any HSA offering. So what I'm saying is in 6 months, knowing that we'd have to go down this road again, is there any concessions along those lines now towards it? 6 months, you realize an HSA plan would be and have to be an offering.
I don't think that we can agree that 6 months from now we'll be behind an HSA plan. You know, I think that our members would be willing to look at it. But right now, as it stands, what's presented,
I would also wonder if we could look at other brokers and see if we have longer time, we'd have more time to have some competition besides just having CBIZ. Because I know when I pulled off some of the different employee benefits from different places, even with the HSA, there are some better buy-up plans than what we're being offered in option 5 and 6. So I think maybe if we had some different studies on that.
Are you talking better buy-up plans in terms of cost or plan design?
Plan design. I'll show you. Here's Lee Summit's. I think it had. Here's Lee Summit's. So I'm gonna pass that around.
Is there 2 sheets of that?
Yeah, there's like 4. It's broken down.
Yeah, they're all different.
Okay.
These are all the plans that they offer.
Do you know who Lee Summit is with?
I do not. That's the information I could pull offline. I didn't call. I'm sure I could call and figure it out, but.
I
believe they're with Blue Cross from members that did research. I believe they're with Blue Cross.
Yeah, they
as
are
well.
with Blue Cross.
But from the-
But I mean, like broker, yeah, for sure.
As it stands now, I don't know that 6 months from now, our members are going to be any more in favor of option 5 than they are today. And one of the primary reasons is because of the increase in their cost for the HMO. The majority of employees are on the HMO, and that would increase their monthly contribution from $33.58 to $115.85. That's for a single. Anybody that has their employee and their family on that, their monthly cost for that insurance is going to be over $1,000. Some of your employees cannot afford that.
And to piggyback off of that, if a family has something bad happen on that plan, and then they have the max out of pocket, the $8,000, there are not many teachers who have $8,000 just able to spend. And we have had lots of comments, and one of them that I really thought was, that applied here, said the $8,000 would be 1/5 of my annual salary. In other words, 9 mortgage payments, 2 family vacations to Disney World, or 8.5 months of daycare. So that's a lot to ask of people.
We just want to make sure that you as representatives get the information back that the trend that has been occurring over the last decade has been towards consumer-driven health benefit plans. And the trend is going to continue that way. It's going to require individuals to be good stewards and shoppers of doctors, of procedures, of knee surgeries. And that's where the affordable care on an HSA comes in. Granted, it's maybe better for some individuals than others. I would like to recommend that a cafeteria style, several plans are offered.
Going back to your comment just now about shopping around, you're still paying $8,000 out of pocket no matter what doctor you attend. So I think that's really not a valid point, because no matter what doctor I go to, if the surgery is $10,000, I'm going to be paying $8,000 of it, or any member. So shopping for a doctor isn't necessarily going to change the amount. You're still out that money.
It helps keeps the group healthcare premiums down as well.
But the 2 HSAs you're offering have an individual deductible of $2,600. That is more than a lot of district employees make per month. Basically, you're asking them to give up a paycheck to cover their insurance deductible.
Again, are you willing to come off of option 1?
At this point, no. As we've said, our members aren't willing to do
I mean,
that.
you're talking about a lot, we're talking about HSAs and everything, but bottom line, I don't know if whatever I say, is it going to change you coming off of option 1?
It would be more likely with with education and compensation being addressed before. Those things have to be addressed. Our members don't know, like, they're not comfortable. And they want compensation if you're asking them to give up more out of their paychecks.
We shouldn't expect any of our employees to make less January 1st than they do right now.
They also have yearly budgets.
step back here, I think, for just a second, okay? Let's take a 5-minute break and come back and see how we want to proceed. Okay, everybody back. Reconvene this. We cannot in good faith negotiate if you're not willing to come off of option one. And I cannot seriously negotiate and benefit the district knowing the budget impact that option one has. One of the only things I would consider would be option two and a 6-month basis.
Well, I respect that, first of all. And second of all, I can't sit here and in good conscience tell you that we're going to go with one of these other plans that is not in the best interest of your staff.
And that's it. We have to look out for the staff, and by saying that we can't even compromise with extending the number one, that's not looking out with what the staff wants when we survey.
You understand with that grandfathered clause in option one and the 95%, I wouldn't be doing my job either. I feel like I'm trying to come to some compromise here, but when you're talking basically about $500,000 increase to this year's budget alone to fund option one for the second half of this school year.
So if we go back to the rebates, which is over $700,000, that would more than cover that. And it's our understanding that that money has to stay in salary and benefits. It would be going to benefit our staff in a large way.
And that came out of that budget anyway previously,
And-
so why wouldn't it be recycled back into that?
Let me back up for a second. What has happened prior, we're constantly being reminded of that, all of us here, and a lot of the issues that we're dealing with here today. And I think all of us are trying to work towards better things. I can check on that, okay? But from a district perspective, and even an employee perspective, you've got to take a hard look at that 6-month time frame renewal. If education, communication, and everything is of the essence, that would allow time to immediately start again and get things in line for a July 1 turnaround, no matter what plan or design we choose.
Before we decide that, can we look into some things like, for instance, the 6-month plan does deduct, I know we'll do 2 deductibles that year, but if we change our renewal date to the August date, does that mean deductibles will only go, how will deductibles work after that? Because I think deductibles are always on the year.
You would get back on that year deductible. It'd be a calendar year, but it would be.
Yes, the deductibles would always stay on a calendar year basis. The only, you're saying that you'd have to meet
So
two deductibles. There is a time that could come into play. If you stayed with the same carrier, it would only come into play where you'd have to meet more deductible halfway through a year if you changed the deductible or you potentially changed carriers in the middle of a year. So if you change carriers, they may or may not recognize, I mean, we would try to negotiate that. They recognize the
Could be a
deductibles that have already
12-month
been
period.
met. And so that But if you change deductible amount, say it's $1,000 and then you go to $1,500 mid-year, you would have that additional $500 to meet for the remainder of the year. So it's not actually two deductibles.
It would just be the more.
Difference, yes,
Right.
okay.
If the renewal was a July 1 renewal, it'd be a 12-month period for your deductible.
So it would go
July
to
to
June, July to June. It wouldn't be still on the calendar year.
That would be
Okay.
correct. Oh, you
From
would get
after,
back
yeah.
on cycle
Okay.
for a
that's-
12-month period.
Right.
There would just be
There would be an overlap.
there'd be an overlap here to start that cycle. That would put you on, I would agree, that would put you on a contract time frame to where everything would be decided, say in the spring of any given fiscal year, where you should know your compensation, you should know your calendar, you should know your insurance benefits, you should know those things before signing a contract to work in the school district. I would agree with that. That would be beneficial instead of doing this always in mid-year. Is that something you can take back to staff and check on?
I would like to take that back and see what people say and to see if they would be okay with something like that. Now, are we talking about Plan 2 for the extra 6 months or Plan 1 for the extra 6 months? Because we need Plan 1.
I'm willing to leave all plans open if it's a 6-month time frame for this discussion purposes.
Right, so
Which
we would
does
come back to
include-
the table and discuss these 6 plans. But what would we, the district employees, have for that 6 months? What we have now?
That, I think it needs to be further discussed and looked into. I'm not willing to look at it at all if it's just a complete 12-month renewal. That takes us down the very same road we're in now. It takes us to unless there's a new revenue stream approved or something drastically changes in reduction in the budget, you're back in this same boat again next fall doing the very same thing. And we've not addressed any of the issues or problems as far as correcting anything. Not knowing what the future brings from any new revenue stream.
And from a personal standpoint, you can apply that same philosophy. We don't know what our revenue is going to be next year either, because we don't know if you're going to, approve a pay increase, a freeze, a step, whatever it might be. And so, we aren't willing to support things without knowing what our revenue stream is going to be either.
I'm willing to agree to steps. Not knowing what this compensation study is, Amy alluded earlier. Again, there are a lot of unknowns. And that's part of the dilemma you're in with this renewal at January 1. Maybe that's one of the first things we agreed to is a 6-month renewal, not knowing anything else right now. I think we're on the same page along those lines.
I'm not ready to agree to that unless we ask, and we find out some feedback for that.
I'm willing to
About the
keep option
6 month.
1 and option 2, all the options on the table. Otherwise, if you're not going to budge off option 1 and the same 12-month format, then we're at it's a quick standstill.
We just have to speak for our members and, really for our staff. We've worked many, many years trying to get a highly qualified staff in our district. And if we're going to cut benefits on them and make it so that professional employees have to worry about if they should take their kids to the doctor, that's uncalled for. So we have to we shouldn't change that mid-year.
Paid professionals shouldn't have to worry about that. master's degrees and graduate degrees if you can afford to take your child to a doctor.
So if I understand correctly, a lot of your hang up too is the 12-month renewal, which we understand comes at a bad time. When if we did a 12-month, we'd be in the same boat. So could we offer option 1 for an 18-month renewal? It gives your staff plan 1, and then it gets you on that July renewal date.
Somewhere in our discussion, if I'm recalling with CBiz and Jim, when he came on board, that question was asked, and there is no option for an 18-month renewal on option 1. And that's just their communication to us.
That's from Blue Cross. Blue Cross will not go more than a 12-month, but that was asked to see if we could go longer.
I think we'd be willing to take back to staff their thoughts on doing something for 6 months, you know, and why we try to get on a different calendar.
And we would get our compensation study back by then.
This would potentially put everything back into a fiscal year timeframe. I think that's the issue you need to get staff to answer. But it would obviously put this negotiation process in a better package timeframe to be addressing.
Because without knowing what employees are going to be paid next year, I can't in good faith represent what they want on these as presented, even though there's other things out there as presented, because they don't know what they're going to get paid.
For 16, 17.
So that's why I said right up from the bat, you know, I don't think they can be talked about exclusively.
And that brings you back to the point of the 6-month timeframe. No matter what we do, maybe a 6-month timeframe is the best timeframe to put it on.
I mean, that would give better or more time to educate people about the plans as presented. How they would have the ability to ask some questions and have those questions answered. They would know what they were going to get paid. You know, it's hard when you're on a salary like ours. We pretty much all live on a budget, and so if you're
it's all relevant.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you're asking a family to start paying $300 more a month in insurance, that $300 has to come from somewhere else in the budget, and that's a really difficult thing to do. So that's very, very that's very hard for us to represent our members having that issue at hand.
Would it also be an option in those 6 months to look at other brokers who may offer other packages?
I think that'd be to our advantage as a district and staff both to really open that up, yes.
So it would give us that time and able to keep what we have currently as well.
Potentially.
I think that's something we can take back to staff and bring back to you next week.
I think there's some things too, what questions you've asked. I mean, you make very good points in the HSA education and also the plan. You know, I had to spend almost an entire day today just refreshing myself on it. And I know there's a lot of questions by staff, and I'm sympathetic to that. That we're on a time frame crunch though. That's something maybe we can check more with to see how quickly open enrollment can be dealt with. But the shorter the time frame requires better staff commitment to getting that open enrollment done. Okay, if it's done online, those types of things. What would be our drop dead date?
What's my drop dead date or yours? So it varies. We have to, by December 6th, have everything loaded into a process system. So we like to have all of the enrollment period, then it takes time for us to get all of that information into their system. It is a manual process right now. It is
But if we
not-
stay with option one, is there a lot of
The
changes?
communication changes, because it's less communication. If we offer an HSA, that a lot more communication needs to happen. So we could reduce the time period for open enrollment to a 2-week period. Get all of that in, that gives us 2.5 weeks to get all of that in.
So we could stretch this out to maybe November 9th. at the
Preferably
latest.
not, but
But that would be your probably drop dead date
that is my
by
drop
the
dead date.
Board of
I
Education
will drop dead then.
decision. That basically would give you the 2 weeks, basically is all you're buying from a time element. That's the next Board of Education in November. Board of Education meeting. Well, you step back and then find out those answers, particularly on the 6-month question. And we'll do the same on some of your questions as well. Again, I understand the issues involved here very much so. And it is important for the district and the board and the community to have highly qualified staff. And to want people to, be in the district and be here teaching. But right now, as the budget sits, it's doesn't add up. Over the course of the next 3 years, if you continue to spend at 2.5–3% rate of reduced reserve balance, that's going to take you down in the low teens. Okay, so that's a time frame we're on, just from a new revenue stream. If nothing else gives from either a resizing or restructuring the district or issues like insurance changing. But if you can get an answer to that 6-month question and keep all options on the table, otherwise, I don't know if we can budge too much here going forward if you're not willing to come off option one.
So even for the 6 month, are you taking, for the 6 month, are you taking option one off the table? Is that what you're trying to do?
I'll keep all options open.
All right.
But what I'm saying is, if it's currently as is with a 12-month time frame, I can't go down that road again. As a superintendent making that recommendation.
We'll take this information back
Okay?
and be ready for next Wednesday.
And that is 4 o'clock then at the boardroom.
Okay,
Okay? Good job.
thank you.
Thank you.